Welcome to Strange Weekly News. In this show, I'm taking a look into the news and headlines to pick out curious reports of the strange, the weird, and the mysterious. Anything from UFO news to science advancements, the paranormal, and stuff labeled fringe science and fringe phenomena. Each news item we go over in the show, I will place all the links to them in the description box below once this live show is over, as well as chapters on the timeline index. Welcome to all of my first-time viewers and listeners, everyone that's watching this live, and all of my incredible moderators. Before we get started, let me give you a rundown on the shows that happened this week, because now, listen to this, we are now doing 4 live shows a week right here. So let me tell you what happened in the last few days. On Tuesday on the show Top 5, we covered the top 5 UFO hotspots around the world. On Wednesday, Jimmy Church and I did a review on Season 4, Episode 3 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and we will start doing reviews on every show every Wednesday live. And then yesterday on Mysteries with a History with Jimmy Church, we covered ancient mysteries, modern discoveries. So for the next few weeks, not forever, but for the next few weeks, we'll be doing 4 live shows a week. But let's get to the good part, shall we? First off, we hit 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you to everyone that is watching the content, enjoying the content, and sharing your feedback via comments either on YouTube or even on podcast platforms as well. Those ratings really do help on any podcast that you listen to. But here's the great news. Today is our 1-year anniversary for Weekly Strange News. And with that, and I'm going to pull this up right here, today we're going to be doing a gift card giveaway. I love doing this every single Friday, giving back to the community. So the base price is going to be $10. If you want to make someone's day, you can make a super chat that says for the gift card, and then that will be racked up at the very end of the show. In the live chat, you want to put the word 1 year exactly as you see it here, the number 1, and then year in all caps. That is one word. So don't worry, it's up there. I'll leave it there just for a moment. And we will do the drawing at the very end of the show. I have my post notes and my pen, so we can start doing all of that fun stuff. And John Aside's ahead of the game today for the gift card, hashtag ramen wagon. So now we're looking at 20. Someone's going to walk away a very happy person. Let's get straight into the news for today. And I'm going to leave that up just for a little bit. Everyone put in the word 1 year. Happy anniversary, everybody. Happy anniversary. Let me actually pull this down because I'm going to be sharing images. The first one is obviously going to be a UFO story. For those that have been listening to the show for quite some time, you kind of know of the way that we run this show, right? So I'm going to pull up this image here as a visual aid, and let's get straight into it. There it is. Nice. Perfect. So, the U.S. Air Force sent a trio of F-22 Raptor stealth fighters to intercept what was eventually classified as a balloon of unknown origin off the Hawaiian Islands last week. Hang in there. We're going to get into more detail. It's now been classified as a balloon. But you know what? We've heard that time and time again. Before it was Venus. Then it was drones after that. Was it really a balloon? Because if it was, there wouldn't be all this hype on that. But you know what? I'm going to give you the details on this, and you can make up your own conclusion on what you think it is. It is something worth talking about. So the U.S. military and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, are continuing to track it in the Eastern Pacific. The Pentagon says it does not know who the owner of the balloon is, but that they do not believe it to be controlled by a foreign or adversarial actor, and added that it has not been assessed to be classified as a threat. The U.S. Indigo Pacific Command confirmed the intercept and provided additional details about this recent, in quotes, balloon incident. A spokesperson for the Indigo Pacific Command stated, the U.S. Indigo Pacific Command responded to an unidentified radar signature Friday in the vicinity of the island of Hawaii. Pacific Air forces launched 3 F-22s to assess the situation and visually identified a spherical object. We monitored the transit of the object and assessed that it posed no threat. As part of our normal daily operations, we closely tracked all vessels and aircraft in the Indigo Pacific area of operations through a combination of joint capabilities to protect the U.S. homeland, support our allies and partners, and secure a free and open Indigo Pacific. We've had this conversation many times here. And now with this whole hype of balloons since February of this year, there's been a lot of questions regarding that. And these pilots are probably skilled, probably have hundreds of hours in the sky. And for them to think that it's something odd just by looking at it first off is really saying something. For there to even be for the Air Force to even state we see something really weird in the sky and the balloon isn't the first thing that comes to mind. I find that a little bit, it's something worth mentioning. It's something that worth covering today because could this be a cover up story? Could it have really been a balloon? We don't know. We weren't there, but the War Zone did cover this story. And it continues. The balloon did not transit directly over defense critical infrastructures or other U.S. government sensitive areas, nor did it pose a military or physical threat to people on the ground. Although it was flying at an altitude used by civilian aviation, it posed no threat to civilian aviation over Hawaii. And then it continues. Based on these observations, the Secretary of Defense concurred that the recommendation of his military commanders that no action need to be taken against the balloon. The balloon is now out of Hawaii's airspace and territorial waters. We will continue to track the balloon with the FAA. Interesting. Jessica, thank you so much. Adding that to the gift card. Beautiful. $25. That word is 1 year, exactly as you see it here. Put that in the live chat if and only if you are watching this live. Then NBC News was the first to report this incident, citing anonymous U.S. government officials. That outlet reported that the balloon currently appears to be heading on an easterly course toward Mexico. This all comes around 3 months after the Federal Aviation Administration told pilots to be on the lookout for possible balloons soaring in altitudes between 40,000 and 50,000 feet, hundreds of miles to the east of Hawaii. This also follows a disclosure in February by American authorities that they were tracking what they assessed to be a Chinese spy balloon passing through U.S. and Canadian airspace. A U.S. Air Force F-22 subsequently shot that balloon down on February 4th off the coast of South Carolina. And by the end of the following week, Air Force fighters had brought down 3 more still unidentified objects that had been detected in the skies over the United States and Canada. And I know we keep talking about this practically every single week, but not only is new information coming out about these cases, but we're seeing more similar cases. And what I really like about a lot of these articles that we cover is that they're now using these odd balloon-like entities as a basis for their articles, as a foundation to say this isn't the first time. And I really do appreciate that. Now, in comparison, in the case of the Chinese spy balloon in February, the extremely high altitudes that it was flying at demanded that the Air Force send U-2S Dragon Lady spy planes to monitor it, as well as collect information about it. Details about the F-22s involved in the balloon chase, which were supported by at least one CT-135 tanker, had also begun to appear online over the weekend. So this is an article that has been spreading out across the news for the last, let's say, a little bit under a week, but not a lot of news outlets have been covering it. If you just casually type it in online, you're only going to get a few locations, a few outlets are going to be like, this is what happened over the weekend over the waters of Hawaii. Now, are they Do they think it's just not a notable piece to comment about? Is it because it's already been identified as a balloon? Well, it wasn't shot down. We don't have the debris of it. All we know is that it's now flying over to Mexico. What is Mexico going to make any commentary on this? We don't know yet. I would like to see something like that, because if it is a balloon, if it really is one, that's not necessarily bad news. That's not, because it's going to show that more people are aware, that they're more on guard when they see something weird in the sky, including the military, and they're going to chase it down until they get a definitive answer on what it is. So while it's kind of a catch-22, it's a double-edged sword here, but it is something worth considering. And at this point in time, from my understanding, from how I interpreted this article, we kind of sort of don't really know what it is. It's been said that it's a balloon, but the Pentagon did not comment on it, that it is for sure. And the first posts about this came in April, specifically April 29th. So, what do you think about this? Do you think it's something worth mentioning? Do you think it's just a bunch of hot air? See what I did there? What are your thoughts? Please let me know in the live chat. Please let me know in the comments as well. Yes. Puck is the best, but he's always been a little round. Puck the Puck Wedgie, the best host. Oh no, the best co-host of all time with the biggest smile and the biggest ears. Love it. Yeah, that's right, Gan. It's a balloon-like entity. Glad you caught that. Paul says, if UFOs are balloons, we are back to 1947. While this conversation is becoming a little bit less stigmatized, we're still getting a lot of, I would like to say, excuses. Now, will that change? I hope so. We're getting hearings. We got this latest one from ERA, which we do need to keep in mind. It was all about funding. It wasn't about giving information to the public about really what their findings were during their time of investigations. It was all about money, but still the fact that it was even made public, that more conversations are coming out about this, while more people behind the scenes are coming forward with their stories, or at least prodding others about their stories. We are coming a long way, at least in my opinion. Can we get more? Of course we can. Are we going to get disclosure from the government? Probably not. Probably not, which that would be cool. But disclosure, for the most part, is going to come from the people, either through being knowledgeable in the topic or through a massive sighting like the Phoenix Lights that took place in 1997, or we might just be taken over. That's also a possibility that not many people talk about. But yeah, it's a bit outlandish. Yeah, it's a little bit of a sci-fi. But all possibilities are on the table. Nothing is too crazy or too outlandish when it comes to the strange and the mysterious. Well, moving on about that, let's stay on kind of sort of the same topic about UFOs. And I'm going to share an image here. It's of a cell phone tower. Let me pull that up. Awesome. So mobile phones, as we know them, we don't really know how they work in present day. All we know is that we can buy a phone and you have the whole internet and more in like a few inches. Just what, 8 inches of screen, give or take. I don't know how much. I don't know how tall they are, but they're pretty small compared to back in the 80s. Those were bricks of computers. Now we have a whole computer that can just fit in your back pocket. Unbelievable. Well, the key to this operation is the sheer number of radio transmission towers. That's how we're able to get cell phones to work so well, to communicate from one to another. These cell towers cover a large percentage of the Earth's surface, especially in densely populated areas, and they constantly transmit microwave signals. Considering that all these cell towers are emitting these radio signals, It's kind of a funny question whether these signals can be detected by alien civilizations. The answer to this question was recently published in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. And the article talks about how radio signals entering space have changed over time. In the 20th century, the bulk of radio broadcasts were from commercial radio and television stations. Now, these transmissions are compared to mobile communications. Military radar transmissions are still the most powerful source of radio leakage from Earth, but cell towers are now in second place. Let's continue. With each cell tower that emits a radio signal with a power of about 100 and 200 watts, given the number of towers and the amount of radio leakage, these amounts to several gigawatts radiated into space. And if we assume that an alien civilization has advanced radio astronomy, then our transmissions should be detected within a dozen light years or so. A dozen light years. Well, in the terms of space, that's not very far. That's like what, maybe a few miles in our terms? That's still significant, if and only if that's the case. This is merely all theoretical at this point in time, that understanding the amount of watts that's being released from these cell towers, and if there was an ancient or an alien civilization that's decently nearby, they would be able to see these radio signals. But, and I'm going to let you enter my mind here, when I was reading this, and I know someone's going to understand this after I say it, it kind of reminds me of the first Independence Day in 1996, when the aliens used human tech, right, the satellites, against humanity. Could the same thing happen here? If that is the case, if they are able to detect these radio signals, and if they are more advanced than us, it's probably really easy for them to take it over. And then what would happen next? So many of us are so glued to our cell phones that if they wanted to take it over, that's going to be the best place to do it, or the best way to do it is through cell towers and then using your phone to do that, right? Right. Exactly. So that's where my mind was going on that. Spectre, thank you. There are a lot of balloons in the skies these days. It's the great balloon disclosure. Happy 1 year anniversary to one of the coolest and most amazingest investigative reporters. Thank you. Stay inquisitive. 10 to card, rest to ramen. Thank you so much, Spectre. That is so kind of you. So we're looking at 35 for a Starbucks or Amazon gift card. That word is 1 year. Someone's going to walk away a happy person. If you want to donate to that card and make someone's day, put a super chat that says for the gift card, and I will calculate that up right here on this awesome bright orange post-it note. But looking at this and the way that the Astronomical Society was looking at this, it depends on where the aliens are, of course, right? Because cell towers radiate most of their radio signal power parallel to the Earth's surface. So the tower signal is strongest when it's going up or down, not side to side. And since most of the towers are in the northern hemisphere, an alien star in the northern hemisphere would receive a stronger signal than a star from the southern hemisphere. Another complication is that all of the signals from the towers are different. So they overlap each other in such a way that an alien civilization would not be able to distinguish any specific messages, but they'll kind of get the gist that something's going on planet Earth. Now, you don't have to worry about aliens listening in on your private phone calls, so they say, but they could still use the signals to learn some interesting things about Earth. All right, I'm going to throw this question at you, and you can tell me in the live chat or in the comments, or just take a moment to think about it. But if you wanted to provide any information to an extraterrestrial race, what would you want them to know about humanity, about Earth, and maybe even about our culture? And that's different from country to country, from person to person, right? So I'm throwing this question at you. What would you like them to know? Maybe something specific or something kind of vague, something in the ballpark. Tell me. I'd like to hear it. And while you share that with me, I will continue on. Oh, and Chris, thank you so much for sending 10 via PayPal. You're making someone's day. Now we're looking at 45. Rock on. Andres says music. You know what? Music is the way to the soul, and food is the way to any person's heart, their stomach, and then to their heart, right? Goraji says humans taste terrible. This is true. Music is the highest form of art. I agree with you on that, Andres. Oh, thank you. Oh, 12. Okay, cool. I'm looking at 47. Got it. Thank you. Cats rule. Ginger turtle, yes. Cats are awesome, but they will also conquer the world at the same time, just with their cute, adorable eyes and their fuzzy little bodies. But yes, cats, 5 out of 5 stars. Let's see. Yeah, this is true, Lex. That's not a good thing. Yes, make sure to put 1 year in the live chat. So and you can obviously, I will place the links to all of these articles for you to read them in more detail if you wish. But I found this article really interesting, that the Royal Astronomical Society would even consider something like this and publish it. Because for these papers to be published, there has to be a significant amount of research done, and they need to provide a hypothesis as well. So I found that really interesting. And I'm like, oh, of course we have to cover this today. I have a few images that I would like to share with you. Obviously, we have the cell phone tower that we all see, but here are the crazy ones. Next time you go for a drive and you're not in the inner city, keep an eye out for these. They're tree cell towers, and some of them look real fake, and some of them truly you can't tell. Look at these palm trees. I'm gonna guess, just gonna take a guess here, Florida, maybe California on the coast, right? But if you're not looking for them, you're not going to see them. But once you start keeping an eye out, you're going to see them popping up everywhere. So I have a challenge for you. Next time you go on a nice little drive, be a leisure drive, or going to visit somebody, go to the grocery store, look for these. I have a few more. Look at this one. It's a cactus one, and they're covering it completely. This one would be a lot harder to detect, especially if you're driving like on the highway, right? And you're going pretty fast. You probably wouldn't be able to notice this one unless you're up close and personal and you kind of see that type of plasticky texture. But this one blew my mind. I was like, geez, that's wild. They're getting really stealthy. Look at these. Real stealthy. But I did want to share those with you. I found them fun. Moving on to our next article here, because it's not weekly strange news if we're not talking about AI, because that is not only the hot topic right now, but we're seeing the evolution right in front of our eyes. And it's going so fast, and there's so many articles coming out, and usually they're not positive. And that's the scary thing, because while it's being used significantly now more than ever, obviously, there's a lot of things that really aren't that great about it. While, of course, there are some benefits if you know how to use it wisely, for the most part, at least what we cover here, we're looking at the more negative aspects, but we have covered some positive ones as well. We got to be neutral. We can't be biased here. We got to bring in all of the information. Well, let's talk about this, because artificial intelligence has become a popular pastime in the ChatGPT era, taken up by high-profile figures such as Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Google, so on and so forth. But it's the concern of insiders in the AI research community that are attracting particular attention. A pioneering researcher, that is the so-called godfather of AI, Jeffrey Hinton, who we're seeing right here, quit his role at Google so he could more freely speak about the dangers of the technology that he has created. This is a big, big deal. Huge. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Let me pull that Let me pull that up. Perfect. Robert Thornton, thank you so much for sending 25 via PayPal. We are looking at, let me do the calculations. My math is not the best, and I will admit that with pride. Dude, $72? If you're watching this on pre-record, come every Friday at 3 p.m. PST, and we do this every single week. Thank you so much, Robert. You're making someone's day. So, over his decade-long career, this person right here, Jeffrey, his pioneering work on deep learning and neural networks helped lay the foundation for much of the AI technology that we see today. And there has been a spasm of AI introductions in recent months. Of course, you have the San Francisco based startup OpenAI, the Microsoft backed company behind ChatGPT, rolled out its latest artificial intelligence model, GPT-4, in March, and other tech giants have invested in competing tools, including Google's Bard, and then you have Bing as well. And some of the dangers of AI chatbots are quite scary, and we have covered those here. But Hinton also stated that right now, they're not more intelligent than us, as far as I can tell, but I think they may be soon. When it's coming out of his mouth, someone that is the what he's been called as the godfather of AI, that really created the foundation, that's really saying something more so than somebody that's just using the technology compared to someone that made the technology. In an interview with MIT Technology Review, he also pointed to bad actors that may use AI in ways that could have detrimental impacts on society, such as manipulating elections or instigating violence. He's 75, and he says that he retired from Google so that he could speak openly about the potential risks as someone who no longer works for the tech giant. But he brings up a great point that a lot of people have mentioned when it comes to AI, is that with things like, you're now able to replicate people's voices. You can use deep fakes now. A really good example of this. So I said yesterday, I'm more of a Trekkie than into Star Wars. But I came across this video that's going to be launching soon of, we all know that Spock passed away. Leonard Nimoy. And there's this video that just came out that's fully deep fake, and it looks very real. Not perfectly real, but pretty darn good. And then I came across another article of Selena Gomez, where we're not related, by the way, but that there were images thrown all across the internet that she went to some, I don't know, some gathering for celebrities, and it looked just like her. The face was perfect to the body, but that body wasn't hers. And everyone was freaking out that she went when she really didn't. It caused this mass hysteria online. But what I'm getting at is, it's becoming a lot more difficult to tell what's true and what's not. And even if we look at UFO sightings, UFO videos, with all this CGI that's coming out, just wait when it gets better. When AI is really taking a role into this, making it look so real to our eyes, we will not be able to figure out if it's a real video or not. And that's where the danger lies, because you won't know which reality is real, right? Well, since announcing his departure, Hinton has maintained that Google has acted very responsibly regarding AI, and he told MIT Technology Review that there's also a lot of good things about Google and that he would want to talk about, but those comments would be much more credible if I'm not at Google anymore. Now, Google did confirm that Hinton had retired from his role after 10 years overseeing the research team in Toronto, but he did decline further comments when talking about these certain aspects of AI. And at the heart of the debate on the state of AI is whether the primary dangers are in the future or in the present. And on one side are hypothetical scenarios, or even current risks that we're dealing with now caused by computers that supersede human intelligence. And On the other, there are concerns about automated technology that's already getting widely deployed by businesses and governments that can cause real world harm. And coming from him, it has a little bit more value, a little bit more credence than someone looking at this from the sidelines, at least in my opinion here. But we have covered AI so many times. A lot of the more scary stories, one of them being in a country in Europe, and there's a different type of AI, and the company escapes me, but the AI had told the person, "You love me more than your wife. Here are multiple ways to take your life," and he did. And that's how influential AI can be. Also, we know that with ChatGPT, not all their information is correct. They get dates wrong, they get certain information wrong. We covered an article here where there was one professor who went to court because ChatGPT stated that he had sexually harassed a student at a university that he never went to with a job position that he never had, where an article was written allegedly, but it was never actually written. That's where it's getting really dangerous, where people can go to prison for something that isn't true, all created by AI. That's where it gets really, really scary. But while we're on the conversation of Google, this is something that's a little bit more sad. It's not great news, but I think it's something that we should consider looking into. Also, because we just spoke about Google, why not continue that conversation? I'm going to share an image here just as a visual aid. But a 31-year-old man who has yet to be identified jumped from the 13th floor of the company's 15-floor headquarter building in New York City around 11:30 on Thursday. He was found unconscious by authorities after police had received multiple phone calls reporting the incident. Officers rushed to the Google engineer and they took him straight to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Handprints were found by officers on the 14th floor ledge. The police noticed an open air terrace located there as well, and no note has been found left behind in the area where authorities say the engineer had the fatal plunge. This Google employee's death leap comes just months after Jacob Pratt, a 33-year-old Google employee who had also worked at the Manhattan headquarters, was found dead in his apartment. Pratt appeared to have passed away by hanging himself back in February. And he was a partnership leader at the company and had been for a year and a half, starting in May of 2019. And both of the Google employees' death come not long after the Google layoff roughly 12,000 people of its global workforce. So it's unclear if they were facing a job threat or something else. Now, I'm not gonna put on my conspiratorial hat here too much, but you can make up your own conclusions on what's going on here. There's very limited information. Was this person, who we do not have his name, but we are aware that it is male? While we don't have his name, could it have been because of a job threat? Could it have been because maybe he was a part of the AI research group, like Jeffrey Hinton? Was it because maybe he was threatened with too much information? Was it because he was depressed altogether? We don't know. All we can do is make assumptions, but it is rather odd that just a few months prior, another employee had also taken their own life as well. So is there a connection, or can we say that there is no connection there? Causation is does not equal correlation. That's what I wanted to say. It was in there. I was trying to put it into words, but causation does not equal correlation. Could that be it? We don't know, but it is something that I wanted to touch on. But it's a very, very short article. Yeah, it could have been Nick. We have such limited information. Speculation at times can be dangerous. That's how rumors get started, and the best rumor goes the farthest, right? But it's something that we should consider. OJ says technology makes us weak. sad to say. Well, if you ask your average person on the street, have it be, or I don't know, in a mall or something, and if you ask them, do you think you can survive in the wild for a week? The majority of them would say no, because we're not taught this by our parents anymore. We're not taught this in our cultural communities like a few decades ago, 100 years ago. We're not taught this in school. So I think that for the most part, yeah, technology does make us weak because it does everything for us. And it's sad. Now, can I make a fire? You betcha. Definitely can do that. Can I do anything else? No, but here's a fun fact. If you get an ant bite or a mosquito bite, grab some mud, put that on your wound, and then it won't be itchy anymore. Now you know. My dad was into the whole Boy Scout type of thing. That was fun. Oh, good. Thank you so much for putting that word in. Let's see, how many entries do we have? 54 entries. I'm going to share my screen here. Just go ahead and show you guys that. Let me pull that up. And I'll leave it up just for a little bit so that everyone that is watching this live can catch up. But the word is 1 year for a $72 Amazon or Starbucks gift card, which we'll do the drawing at the very end of the show. So I'm going to leave it up just for a little bit as we continue onward with the notes, because this also simply would not be Weekly Strange News if we didn't cover space tourism, space exploration, space just in general, right? Because I came across an interesting article, and we've covered the International Space Station, SpaceX, the one by Bezos, and the Virgin Galactic in separate videos covering new information that they release. But I came across this article that kind of gives you a rundown of a handful of them, and they're all competing against one another, and they tell you how much the ticket price is. And I said, you know what? That'll be kind of fun to cover today, to give all of those articles that we've covered in so many previous episodes and bring it all into one. So let's get straight into that. Everyone's copying the 1 year. Perfect. 61 entries. Ooh. I'm going to take that down just for now, but it's still collecting. And I'm going to share an image here, because the first one that we're going to talk about is, hold on, let me pull this up. Nice. Virgin Galactic. Because with missions to the International Space Station, which is now the norm, and Elon Musk talking about going to Mars, it's often hard to imagine that just 65 years ago, no human had ever been to space. 65 years ago. And for 300,000 years, we walked the Earth, but it wasn't until 1961 that the very first person went and escaped the confines of our planet. So now, 5 decades on, space tourism companies are springing up everywhere with promises to take ordinary people on adventures to the stars, not just in the US, but this is across the world. Countries, a good country is Japan, which has several companies. But the vast majority of these ticket prices are, really only for the extreme rich right now. Is that going to change in 10, 20, 30 years? You betcha, definitely will. But to be one of the first, you got to have a lot of money for it. So who will win the race to offer regular commercial trips? We don't know yet. And if money was no object, what could you get from the different options that are offered for all of these different things that we're going to cover today? So let's get into our first one, Virgin Galactic, because this ticket is about $450,000. The experience will be about 90 minutes, and then you will have 5 minutes of weightlessness, which is very cool. Is there going to be a good view? Well, there's going to be about 17 windows to catch a glimpse of Earth. And the first flight might possibly happen in the summer, or maybe by 2024. There will be up to 6 passengers plus 2 pilots. Branson has been a major player ever since starting his Virgin Galactic ventures back in 2004, and there have been plenty of setbacks, as is always the way with space travel. But in 2021, he beat Bezos to the edge of space by just 9 days. Now he hopes to start offering similar trips to the public, possibly as early as this year, although 2024 is beginning to seem more likely. The company has hoped to begin commercial operations this summer, but next year appears to be more realistic. Now, what's interesting about this is that we it's public knowledge that Virgin Orbit, which is also run by Branson, filed for bankruptcy because of its own financial struggles. But this is the sister firm. But when it comes to Virgin Galactic, so far so good. We'll see what the future holds for him. Moving on to Blue Origin, this ticket is anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000, or about £160,000. And this experience will only last 10 minutes and 20 seconds. It's kind of sad, with a float time of 3 minutes, being weightless. And Blue Origin has already completed several flights, but it will begin to reopen to tourists in 2024. Just like with Virgin Galactic, it will have 6 passengers. But here's the unique thing with Blue Origin is that it, in order to be a tourist, in order to get a trip just for 10 minutes, kind of brutal if you ask me, there are 2 days of training. So you have to get trained first before you can get on this tiny little rocket to get into space, which is kind of sad. But in September last year, an uncrewed mission had to be aborted mid-flight after the rocket experienced what appeared to be a propulsion failure. Its capsule enabled it to make a safe landing with the aid of parachutes, meaning that had people been on board, they likely would have survived, but it probably would have been really scary. Luckily, in this test flight, there was no people on it back just last year, and it made it down with parachutes. But I think that if I was a passenger, I'd be like, I want my money back. Not only is the trip 10 minutes, but we could have died. I need a refund. Thank you. Well, looking at the next competitor, which is Axiom Space and SpaceX, tickets here are $55 million. But here's the reason why, before you think that that is wild, because the experience is 10 days, including 8 days on the space station. That's why it costs so much. These other ones are only for a few minutes. This one is 10 days, and you would be weightless for several days. You will be able to see the entire Earth from the International Space Station, and the first flight took back in 2022, and with 4 or 5 more planned. With Axiom Space, the amount of passengers will only be 4 plus a commander. So I'm looking at $55 million. That's right, Drew. Yeah, that's pretty wild. OJ, wouldn't you ask for a refund if your life was on the line? It's not even a question. That'd be an absolute yes. Yeah, Jessica, I feel you. Only the mega rich have 55 million just laying around just for fun. But then again, 10 days, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Well, if you're not feeling like going on a rocket, there are some other options that we've covered as well. One of them being a space perspective. And this only costs about $125,000. The experience is 6 hours. However, you're not going to be weightless at all. There will be gravity. And you get this beautiful panoramic view. The first flight will supposedly be at the end of 2024. There will be 8 passengers. But here's the really cool thing about this little balloon-like entity is that it also involves fine dining. So not only do you get to see planet Earth for about 6 hours, but there will also be cocktails, reclined seats, fancy food, all of that fun stuff. So it's like, for the price compared to the other ones that we're looking at, it's pretty reasonable. I mean, it's not, but again, compared to the other ones like Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, and Axiom Space, $125,000 for 6 hours in space plus food and drink. It's not too bad. Yeah, it looks awesome, right? Basketball says, why would anyone want to go to space just for bragging rights? Interesting. It could be. There is that pride factor there on who has the most money, but also humans are a spacefaring species. We all want to explore. We all want to experience the things that have never been experienced before. And so to be able to go to space is going to fulfill a lot of people's dreams, aspirations, desires, and even imagination as well. And while for us at this point in time in 2023, it's kind of like only the rich can afford it, space is our future. Space exploration, inhabiting the moon, inhabiting Mars. It is our future. And we have to start off with things like this to get better knowledge on how to do this type of tourism in space and then go from there. So, like, yes, right now it is kind of bragging rights, which is, amazing bragging rights if you ask me, but it's the foundation for our future. There are a bunch more that are covered in this article. And the last one that I would like to touch on is the Blue Origin's orbital reef. That word I always find so difficult to say. What is one word that you find so hard to say? For me, it's orbital. That's one of mine. But looking back at Bezos, he wants to add a space station in addition to his tourism flights. So his company, Blue Origin, has been handed about $130 million in NASA funding to develop its orbital reef space station in partnership with Sierra Space and Boeing. And it's aiming to launch the space station's first model in the second half of this decade. And it's billed as a mixed use business park in space. And the station is being designed to hold up to 10 people at a time, which is pretty small. And the hope is that Boeing's problem-plagued Starliner will then be operational by the time of this reef station when it is ready to accept visitors in the late 2020s. That's an arm's reach right there. Late 2020s. That's pretty awesome. But this is one that's very cool. It's generally accepted that Bezos has a very business mindset. He wants to profit from space not only by doing tourist flights, but allow people to stay, like to have a little hotel in space, which again is so awesome. But yes, it is bragging rights at this point in time, but it won't be at some point in our future. It's just going to be normal. People are just going to live in space and mine asteroids like the TV show The Expanse. It's going to happen. But right now, it's super cool. In a few decades or 100 years, it's just going to be your average day. Just another day doing your thing, enjoying your life pretty much. Well, I'm going to pull this one up because for my friends across the pond in the UK, you're going to really cringe about this one because we're talking about fish and chips here. I love fish and chips. So delicious, and it's so basic. It's not a lot of seasoning. It's very simple, but when you find the right place, fish and chips, amazing. Well, now fish and chips can be made with a 3D printer, and it's lab grown fish. We're looking at fish right here. It's not just fish and chips. It's just the fish, and it looks like dough. It looks like pale fecal matter. That's what it looks like. Well, scientists have dished up the world's first 3D printed lab grown fish, claiming it flakes and it melts in your mouth just like the real deal. I feel like they're really trying to pitch that. They're really trying to sell something that isn't even possible to sell to the public. Cells were grown in a lab to create the futuristic grouper fillets without the need to put further pressure on dwelling fish populations. In a matter of months, Israel-based Stakeholder Foods hopes to bring its food to the market, allowing others to try the world-class fish for themselves. And it continues. We are delighted to have produced the world's first whole fillet cultivated fish in partnership with Stakeholder Foods, which was supplied with fish cells. In this first tasting, we showcase a cultivated product that flakes, tastes, and melts in your mouth exactly like an excellent fish should. In the coming months, we intend to announce our plans for bringing this world-class cultivated fish to the market. Scientists customized bioinks, materials used in 3D printing to form artificial tissue to produce their fish product. You know, this sounds grody, but which one sounds worse? 3D printed fish or a mammoth meatball? An extinct. Let me just stress that. This meatball was from an extinct mammoth mixed with some African bison to make a lab-grown mammoth meatball, which we covered here a few weeks back. But this fish, the sad here's the really sad thing, that this is our future. This is going to happen. We can expect this in the next few decades. We will see this in the grocery store. That is not even a question. But still having the privilege to have the real deal, yeah, this is pretty gross. And just the image, it's disgusting. It's really, really, and they're trying to make it look all nice, getting a really good photographer here, adding some greens to it. But you can't fix nasty. You can't do you can't do that. And for those listening to this on a podcast platform, jump over to YouTube. That link is below so that you can see these images that I am sharing right here, because they're not delicious. OJ, I missed it, says I turned vegetarian first. Oh yeah. It does look like a croissant, right, Peppa? It totally does. But then reminding yourself that it's supposed to be fish, that's where it's getting really grody. Yeah, Hyde says mammoth meatball every time. If you are enjoying the show so far, do hit the thumbs up button. It lets me know that you're enjoying the show, and it also helps the YouTube algorithm as well. So smash it, the like button, and then thank you for that. Oscar says it looks like a slug. It does. It does. It's pretty grody. Yeah, right, Jessica? An uncooked croissant roll. Yeah, pretty much everyone's thoughts is it's a hard pass. It's a big no for everybody. Well, what's even weirder about this is that these inks are usually made up of cells that can also incorporate gel-like and plant-based materials. Just even using the word gel-like when it comes to meat, those should not even be in the same sentence. But in this case, the Singapore-based Umami Meats extracted cells from a grouper before growing them into muscles and fat. When put inside the 3D printer, their flesh gained mass as a glass dish swiped back and forth, and a flaky fish prototype was formed as a result of this, mimicking the texture of cooked fish. I don't know who they're lying to, but that does not look like the texture of cooked fish. Could I be wrong? Yes. Would I try this? Yes. I probably would. I would give it a try. Gotta try every food at least once. But I'm not happy about it. Just because I would try it doesn't mean that I'm happy about the idea. But in the future, Stakeholder Foods hopes to use its printer to create various different species of fish while working with numerous industry players as well. Scientists have now established the process for eel and hopes to add 3 more endangered species in the coming months. The team also hopes to bring their first products to Singapore's market next year before moving on to countries such as the US and Japan. However, it's all dependent on food regulation rules, as it should be. But what rules would they even follow? That's my question. Like, it's made in a lab. They're not going to be using antibiotics and all this other stuff that they usually put in real meat. That's not going to be the case for this. To my knowledge, when we covered the mammoth meatball, they had stated that they're not going to be using any of that. It's supposed to be, quote, safer, but it's made in a lab. So is it really? Do we actually know what's going inside it? No, we don't. But they're going to be like, oh, but you know what? There's no antibiotics. That's a really big plus. Please buy our product and give us your money, kind of deal. You got to have a good spokesman. You got to have a really good presenter to talk about your product. That's how you do it every time. But with this, no, I'm going to pass. Yeah. No, says Mark. I feel you. Donna said this is a valid question. David says AI prefers 3D printed fish and chips. Yes, they do. Jeez. 3D printed ramen. Ramen's already so plastic. Like Maruchan, the one that I eat because it's like 30 cents a pack. That is plastic already. If it was 3D printed, I'd be like, I'd probably still eat that because it's so bad for you. But it's okay. It's okay. Moving on to our next article. This one is interesting. It's a science advancement. I'm going to pull up this image here. This is what it is as a visual aid. Let me pull that up because it's an ultrasound of a baby in the womb. And for the very first time, surgeons have successfully repaired a major malfunction in the brain of a fetus. That's huge. So, guided by ultrasound, surgeons from Boston Children's Hospital and Brigham and Women's Hospital in the US used a surgical technique to treat a rare condition called vein of Galen malformation. And the vascular abnormality permits blood to flow dangerously fast through parts of the brain after the child is born. The process of the procedure offers new hope for treating the condition before the risk of complications escalate. Here's the crazy thing about this is that there are surgeons that are able to conduct a brain surgery while a fetus is still in the womb. This is where our medical advancements are going. Now, in a few years, a few decades maybe, robots will be able to do this exact procedure. Right now, we're using humans, and that's already an incredible task. But when it comes to robots, right, they're a lot more precise. So we will see how that goes. And maybe that's going to be the case for a lot of different surgeries. Robots and AI will be used more so than humans because of that accuracy rate, right? Right. So although this is just the first patient to be treated this way, the procedure appears to have been a big win because they succeeded. And this right here, this disease, and I'm going to repeat that, it's called the vein of Galen malformation. It affects around 1 in every 60,000 infants. But it's also a rare type of vascular abnormality in the brain that causes arteries to connect directly with the veins rather than the capillaries, which would otherwise control the flow of blood. And this means that the flow of blood into the veins is much higher than is safe, with a number of pretty dangerous effects. The condition places significant stress on the cardiovascular system, which can lead to heart failure and can cause hypertension in the arteries, in the lungs, and the heart. And because of the additional pressure in the brain, it can cause significant brain damage that results in neurological and cognitive impairments. It also has a high mortality rate as well. So this is another reason to why this is so big, because this is a pretty dangerous malformation. While it is classified as rare, 1 in every 60,000, that's still a significant number. I mean, it's still something, right? So we'll see what happens in the future with more surgical activities such as this one, and in what other ways they will be able to do surgeries on fetuses that are still in the womb, which is seriously significant. But you can read more on that if you wish. This next one is crazy, and we're going to pull this up. This is really fun. It's about space. If it wants to pull up. There it is. Let me pull this up because it's so cool. All right, that is awesome. Because for the first time ever, we're doing a lot of firsts today. Scientists have caught a star in the act of swallowing a planet. Not just a nibble or a bite, but just one big gulp. Astronomers on Wednesday reported their observation of what appeared to be a gas giant around the size of Jupiter or bigger being eaten by its star. The sun-like star has been puffing up with old age for eons and finally got so big that it engulfed the close orbiting planet. You know, it's kind of a gloomy preview of what will happen to Earth when our sun morphs into a red giant and gobbles up the four inner planets, but that isn't anytime soon. And this right here, I mean, if that were to happen, it'd be like in 5 million years or so, even 5 billion years or so. But the galactic feast, this one that we're seeing here, happened between 10 to 15,000 years ago, when the star was around 10 billion years old. Because as we know, when we see these images from space, we're practically going back in time. We're not seeing it in real time, right? Because we're seeing everything at light speed. And light speed is limited. So what we're seeing here has happened 10 to 15,000 years ago. But we're just seeing it now, which is crazy. So as the planet went down the stellar hatch, there was a swift, hot outburst of light, followed by a long-lasting stream of dust shining brightly in cold infrared energy. And that's what the researchers saw. And while there had been previous signs of other stars nibbling at planets and their digestive aftermath, this was the first time the swallow itself was observed, according to the study appeared in the journal Nature. And that's what we're seeing right here. Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, stated that the spotted an luminous outburst in 2020 while reviewing sky scans taken by the California Institute of Technology's Palomar Observatory. And it took additional observations and data crushing to unravel the mystery. And instead of a star gobbling up its companion star, this one had devoured its planet. And that's why this is so cool. Now, given a star's lifetime of billions of years, the swallow itself was quite brief, occurring in essentially one fell swoop, which is pretty interesting if we're looking at the timeline of all of these different things. It was pretty fast. And the findings are very plausible as well. Makes question why. We just saw it. How's it just plausible? But this is a different type of sort of eating, because this star, once again, was it just gobbled the whole planet in one gulp. And we've seen other ones that just kind of nibble here and there, but this one was like, it was so hungry, just took one bite. And this is really cool. The first time it was ever seen. I love that. But while we're on the conversation of space, let's talk about the moon, but very specifically lunar soil. Let me pull this up. If it feels like it. My laptop is just being oddly slow today. Okay, so here's a visual aid for lunar soil. Because researchers at NASA's Johnson Space Center have successfully extracted oxygen from simulated lunar soil. According to the agency, it is the first time, another first, that such an extraction was completed inside a vacuum environment like the actual moon. And it's an exciting proof of concept scientifically, but also economically. Why? Because it could potentially provide future astronauts with the capability to harvest resources once they land on the moon and turn them into breathable oxygen and even rocket fuel for the way home. In a test, the team recreated conditions similar to those found on the moon inside a 15-foot chamber called the Dirty Thermal Vacuum Chamber. And by heating a simulated soil sample using a high powered laser inside a carbothermal reactor, the team successfully extracted oxygen from the soil. Similar carbothermal reduction reactions have already been used for decades to produce solar panels and steel, NASA had noted, and which Blue Origin has also done. Jeff Bezos has also done stuff very similar to that. Well, a NASA senior engineer had stated that this technology has the potential to produce several times its own weight in oxygen per year on the lunar surface, which will enable a sustained human presence and lunar economy. That is that is such big news. But scientists say they've developed a fully functional prototype that's ready to be put to the ultimate test in space. Because another NASA engineer had stated that our team provided the card reactor would survive the lunar surface and successfully extract oxygen. This is a big step for developing the architecture to build sustainable human bases on other planets and on the moon as well. But it won't be easy. See, there's the but. But it won't be easy. Once on the moon, the reactor will have to be able to maintain high levels of pressure while also allowing lunar soil to get in and out of the reaction zone. So, getting heavy equipment to the moon is also a significant challenge as well. And at the earliest, the agency is hoping to land astronauts on the surface of the moon during the upcoming Artemis 3 mission, which will be before the end of the decade, which is something that we've also covered significantly here on this channel as well, because we always love seeing space advancements here and seeing what's new. So we love doing here. But looking at this, while it's something that's really interesting, while it's something that is plausible, it's the heavy technology that has to be taken to the moon that's going to be rather difficult. And they might find some other options by the time that we get there, to see how they can sustainably make oxygen. But just because they have a solution, it doesn't mean that they're going to use that solution. Because at the end of the day, it's all about making that money or ways to save money, right? And if this is just too, if it just costs way too much or it's too difficult to get to the moon, they're going to scratch that idea and go somewhere else, right? That's business. That's just how it works. But it's still something pretty interesting to mention looking at these space advancements. All right. I got a few more articles for you, and then we'll be doing the drawing. Make sure to put 1 year in the live chat, if and only if you're watching this live, for a $72 Starbucks or Amazon gift card. Eating my words a little bit here, but we're going to continue onward. Okay, this one. See, now we're getting into the strange. First, we do UFOs, then we get into the science, and then we just get into the flat out weird. This one is flat out weird. Let me pull up this image. This is merely a visual aid, but you're going to get the idea of what this next article is about. Here that is. Perfect. All right. In an unbelievable turn of events, a man in Guangxi province, China, was found alive after being buried in his own grave, throwing the entire village into a frenzy. It's not even Halloween yet. It's not even October, and we're getting some pretty spooky stories. The man's wife, who had rushed home from work to attend his funeral, was in shock when she believed that she heard her husband's voice from underground. And with the help of her neighbors, they quickly dug him and discovered that he was indeed alive, having spent some time underground in his own grave. According to local customs, the wife was to bow 3 times before her husband's burial site, but as she was completing the ceremony, she heard faint sounds coming from underground. Her son, too, was able to hear the strange sounds, that they both started to wonder if the grave was the source of these weird noises. And desperate to understand what was happening, the wife pressed her ear on the ground and called out her husband's name. Clear as day, she heard him respond, "Let me out." And so the search for help to rescue her husband began right after that. Right, Jonaside? Zombie apocalypse summer? It seems like it. Chaos, thank you so much for that super sticker. I do appreciate that. Yeah, it's weird, but there is more to this story. So astonished by the bizarre turn of events, neighbors didn't have time to dwell on questions, instead sprinting to the gravesite to help dig out the man. And once the coffin had been retrieved, the wife opened the lid without hesitation. She's like, "That's my husband. Like, what is he doing in the grave?" Well, to her shock and relief, her husband was indeed in life, obviously, because he was screaming. And she quickly embraced her husband. She's like, "What happened? Like, you could have died being buried alive." We've covered that here as well. So she begins to ask people. She's like, "What happened? How was he buried so quickly? And I only got the phone call that there was going to be a ceremony for his death. Like, what's going on here?" So, over time, before this happened, the husband suffered from a serious illness, and despite spending large amounts of money on medical treatment, his health remained poor. As a result, the wife had to leave home for work, entrusting the care of her husband to his parents. On the day of the incident, the husband's mother had brought him food as usual, only to find him unresponsive on his bed. He was cold to the touch, and even the local village doctor declared him dead after examining his lack of pulse and breath. His mother contacted her daughter in law at work, informing her of her husband's death and urging her to return home for the funeral ceremony. I'm going to finish this and I'm going to share you my thoughts because this is wild. Okay. So, having gone untreated for an extended period, because what actually happened when he was thrown into the hospital after this whole incident, they just found out that he had just whack blood sugar levels and he was very dehydrated as well, which caused all of these issues. So, having gone untreated for an extended period, his body suffered from extreme dehydration, leading to a weakened pulse that had been mistaken for his death. And his sudden awakening in the coffin was likely due to a sharp lack of oxygen. So if he was just sleeping, he with no oxygen, he could have just passed away right there. But he woke up like right, like when you don't get oxygen for a long period of time, you kind of freak out. That's when he began to scream for help. Fortunately, the hospital was made aware of the couple's financial discoveries and they decided to cover the cost of the husband's treatment entirely. The discovery of the husband and the outstanding support of the community stand as testament to the importance of unity and sheer human determination. Okay, now I want to show you my thoughts on this because this is what's really, really weird. And, it's not my culture, and that's why I have these questions. But for them to so quickly say that the body is no longer alive and then to bury them that fast blows my mind, because here in the States, okay, the body is now deceased, it's expired, you take it to the hospital runs some tests, they do an autopsy, then it's placed in the morgue, placed in a freezer for a certain period of time, and then it's put underground pushing daisies. Like that's the path, that's the journey after the body expires. But in this case, they were so eager to put him underground. I'm going to assume within a few hours of finding out that he allegedly passed away when he didn't. It's crazy. Now, again, I don't know how it works in China when it comes to doing these types of ceremonies and how they deal with the dead, but I'm just like, they were a little bit too eager to get themselves and to get him underground. But what do you think about this? Let me know your thoughts in the live chat, in the comments as well. Hag says at least 7 days, because this isn't anything new. There have been a handful of cases throughout the centuries of people being buried alive because they were mistaken for being dead when they weren't. So there's a protocol, at least here in the States, and I'm going to assume in a few other countries, that they cannot be buried for a few days just to make sure that they are, in fact, dead or alive. Also, there are certain rituals done depending on the religion as well, the religion that's followed, on how they handle these ceremonies, or if they leave the body untouched for a certain period of time before they bury them or cremate them as well. Moo says, it does seem kind of fishy. Look, you said it, not me. But yes, a little bit. If there were more details, I would read them to you, but that's all the information that I have about it. So with the limited amount of information, it can sound a little sketch, just a tad. But, you know, we weren't there. We don't have the witnesses' names or the wife's name, so we can't question them into great detail on what happened. Right? Yeah. But let me know your thoughts and opinions on this, because it's pretty weird. Oscar says, is that why a bell with the string going into the coffin were placed a long time ago? I've actually not heard that. That is interesting. I know that coffins today, they have cameras in them. Like, I don't know why you want to see your loved one decompose incredibly slowly, because, you know, they're embalmed, right? So it takes like a really long period of time. But cameras, that's pretty freaky. But a bell and string, I didn't know that. Do I believe that? Yes, I can definitely see that happening. And that's probably why, for that exact reason. Well, I got a few more articles for you before we do the drawing. 2, to be exact. Maybe we'll see how it goes. But let me pull up this one. And I have a funny story to add to this. What the heck? Let me pull up this image. I'm going to start off with my story. So when I was younger, I grew up in the cell phone era. Okay, by the age of 12, I had a cell phone because I was born in 99, for those that didn't know. And I went through a lot of cell phones as a small child because I was impatient, immature, and I just didn't know how to handle this type of technology. So, funny story. I had a BlackBerry that was given to me by my uncle. And I was like, and I was 12, maybe 13. And I was like, oh, you know, my phone looks so dirty. Let me put it under the sink to wash it. Look at this face. I am so embarrassed of my 12 or 13-year-old self to think, oh, technology, it looks dirty. Let me put some soap and water and put it under the sink, and then everything's going to be handy dandy and everything's going to be great. Well, let's just say it didn't survive after those few seconds under running water. And I had to get another cell phone after that. But with this particular story, what's very cool about this one is that there was a cell phone found on the beach of Hawaii that was lost for 33 days. And then miraculously, it still works. And look at all this little crustiness right here. You see nature doing its thing. And why didn't that happen to my cell phone? Why wasn't I lucky? I don't know, and it's a bit disappointing. But let's get into this. So a Minnesota man who lost his iPhone 14 was kayaking in Hawaii, and he got the shock of his life when a complete stranger got in touch with him and told him that he had found his handheld phone and it was working perfectly. This person that was kayaking was 27-year-old Zach Zillikal of St. Anthony Village, Minnesota. While he was on vacation in Hawaii, him and his sister went out in December to go there. They were kayaking. He sees some airplanes up in the sky. He's like, let me record this. And as he's recording, a huge wave comes and he loses his phone and his sunglasses. As many of us do at the beach, we always lose the sunglasses. It's never an exception. Unless you have like those really cool strings, then maybe are like attached to the ears of the sunglasses. You're pretty smart if you have one of those. And so 33 days later, give or take, he gets an email from someone who's, funny enough, a fisherman scientist. And he was like, hey, I found your phone. It's working. I actually placed it in rice for a few days. That's the trick. And here you go. So Zach is reading this email. He's like, how did you even access my cell phone? How did you even find my email? And the fisherman says, your password was just a bunch of zeros. Like, that's it. So it was pretty easy to take a guess on what it was. And Zach's like, yeah, you're right. It was actually a bunch of ones, to be specific with you, Mr. Fisherman. But yeah, it's pretty easy password. So I guess I'm lucky that you found my phone and unlocked it, I think. But thank you. And so he was able to retrieve all the camera footage, all the other pictures that he has on his phone, maybe the contacts as well, that he thought he lost in Hawaii, but it was found. But I just can't believe, but this is salt water, first off, okay? That stuff is corrosive. I don't know how this iPhone 14 was able to survive being in the deep depths of the ocean for a handful of days and still work. And yet my BlackBerry was only underwater for a few seconds. And I even put it in rice and it died on me. I'm a bit upset with that. Well, Apple claims that the iPhone 14 can survive up to 6 meters underwater for 30 minutes, but this one spent 33 days at the bottom of the ocean. So I guess here, Apple is selling its smartphones kind of short. But this story isn't unique because a couple of years ago, an iPhone 11 spent a year at the bottom of a lake and that one still worked. And then last year, there was a story about another iPhone that spent 10 months at the bottom of a river. So these iPhones, I did not know that they're waterproof and they can just last forever. And yet, like, you got to buy a new iPhone every few years because, like, that battery just dies and the storage is garbage. Android, that's where it's at. I used to have an iPhone, but I'm team Android here. How many of you are team Android or team iPhone? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the comments, and we'll see that rivalry. Well, I have the grossest for last. So feast your eyes on this. Now, you first might see it and you're like, Christina, what am I looking at? I'm going to let you simmer on it just for a sec. And then I want to tell you exactly what you're looking at. But we're seeing an X-ray, obviously. We can guess that much. But a Brazilian doctor recently shocked millions on social media by posting an X-ray of a man suffering from cysticercosis, whose body was riddled with calcified tapeworm eggs. That's all of these little specks that we're seeing. Those are all tapeworm eggs, but they're all calcified. So it's okay. It's not dangerous or anything. But now that you see the image, is your skin crawling? Does it feel kind of gross? It should, because I find it very grody. Well, last month, a doctor in Sao Paulo, Brazil, posted an X-ray of a patient on Twitter to show his followers how bad a tapeworm infection could get. The doctor explained that the white spots visible all throughout his midsection and his arms were calcified tapeworm eggs following infection with the common parasite. Luckily, the patient had come in for a checkup following a persistent cough and was no longer it was in no danger from the eggs, as they were all calcified, as I had mentioned several times. Although the tapeworm eggs pose no threats to the man's health, they caused quite a stir online. And these lesions, as he had stated in his Twitter post, the doctor stated that these lesions are calcified, but they're not dangerous. And it doesn't cause any discomfort, so life goes on. I'm going to take this image down because it's gross. It's pretty gross. But this is considered pretty rare in Brazil, with less than 150,000 cases per year. Cysticercosis is the disease caused by the ingestion of tapeworm eggs, and it usually occurs in intermediate tapeworm hosts, which usually mean pigs and bovines. But humans can sometimes become their host as well, which means that their organs can be infested with parasite eggs. So, I mean, it's pretty gruesome image that I had showed you. But my question would be, because they don't go into detail on this, and if I have any doctors listening, please give me the answer. How do they become calcified? How come none of them hatched? That's my question. How did that work? I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. I will look for that answer after today's show because I do want to know. But it is something that kind of makes me question, like, how is that possible? How did that work? But yeah, it's pretty gross, really. Not really for that. But now we went through all of our articles. Let's do our fun giveaway. Happy 1-year anniversary, everyone, for Weekly Strange News. I'm going to share my screen here so that you can put 1 year exactly as you see it here, because we will do the drawing for a $72 Amazon or Starbucks gift card. Thank you, everyone that donated to make someone's day today. You are all so awesome, not only donating, but also watching this live, and all of my incredible moderators as well. If you are enjoying the show, make sure to hit the thumbs up right below on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, rate it. I want to hear your thoughts on what you think. 1 out of 5 stars. How many stars? Hopefully a handful at least. But I'm going to give you a few moments to put the word 1 year in the live chat, if and only if you are watching this live, so that you have a chance to win, because I love giving back to you guys. I love giving back to the community and making someone's day. We've been doing this for a while and the feedback has been tremendous. Everyone loves this. So I'm really, really happy about it as well. All right. Let's see. Are you ready to do a drawing? You know what? Let's get to 100. I need 3 more entries. We have 189 people watching this live. Okay, 2 more entries. Come on, get to 100. It's 1 year exactly as you see it here. The number 1 and then year in all caps. Come on. One more. Come on. One more. Kathy, thank you. Great show tonight. Appreciate that. Let's see. Okay, 101. Here we go. Let's do the drawing. You are winner today. Yeah. Dawn Brown, congratulations. You are the winner of a $72 Amazon or Starbucks gift card. Please send me an email. That link is below, and I'll place it on the screen as well. Send me an email with your YouTube URL, and if you would prefer Starbucks or Amazon, and I will get that digital gift card sent to you shortly after you send me the email, which is right there and in the description box below. Just copy and paste that. But that is it for today. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter at eyes_ for all of my updates and news. We're now doing 4 live shows a week right here on this channel. As the 4th show we are now adding is a review on the secret of Skinwalker Ranch, with every single episode for season 4 moving forward. If you want to continue this conversation, bring it over to the Discord server. That link is below. Share your thoughts, your insights, your opinion, your experiences, and more. If you like all the content that you're seeing on this channel, do consider being a Patreon supporter. All the funding goes straight to the channel, to the RV fund, where I'll be traveling the United States, hitting all the UFO and paranormal hotspots, and taking you on the journey with me. And some of it gives Puck a bowl of ramen as well. I want to thank everyone watching this live. Thank you for all the super chats, super stickers, all my YouTube members, Patreon supporters, and all of my incredible moderators. I simply cannot do this show without you. That is it for today. I will see all of you guys soon. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.